You're listening to From Stillness, an audiobook for a mind in need of quiet. You've probably lived your entire life believing there's a you, a solid, continuous self that moves through time, makes decisions, and experiences the world from a central, unchanging point. It's the voice in your head that narrates your story, the familiar sense of I that seems to anchor your entire life. But have you ever stopped to ask, where exactly is that self? Not metaphorically, literally, where is it? Ancient Zen masters posed this exact challenge to their students. Show me the self, they'd say. Where does it begin? Where does it end? Students would search in the body, in the mind, in their memories, and always come up empty. The harder they looked, the more elusive the self became. Centuries later, neuroscientists began asking the same question. They scanned the brain expecting to find a command center, some core identity pulling the strings. But what they found instead was billions of neurons firing, thoughts appearing, emotions shifting, memories flashing in and out like lightning. No pilot, no single I, just activity. And yet, something is still here, watching, listening, experiencing. There is awareness. But the self, the story of me, that's something different. The philosopher David Hume recognized this centuries ago. When he looked inward, he didn't find a solid self. He found a bundle of impressions, feelings, thoughts, perceptions, always in motion, never still. No core, just a process, unfolding moment by moment. It's a confronting idea because it means the person you think you are may not be a thing at all, but a story. A clever construction. A performance built from memory, habit, fear, hope, and expectation. The brain tells the tale so convincingly, you never think to question it. But now you are. And once you start questioning the self, the illusion begins to ripple. Not in a way that's meant to confuse or detach you from life, but to wake you up to something far deeper, far quieter, and far more real. The question is no longer, who am I? It's, what has been here the entire time? When the idea of a fixed self begins to unravel, it's natural to feel unsettled. If the me you've always believed in is just a mental construction, a bundle of thoughts, labels, and memories, then what's left? What remains when the story fades? Awareness. Not a person, not a voice, not even a thought. Just the quiet, observing presence that has always been here, watching everything unfold without comment or judgment. It was here when you were a child, long before you had words for your feelings or ideas about who you were. It was here during heartbreak, during joy, during boredom. It's here now, as you listen. The one consistent thread through every version of yourself you've ever been. You might assume that voice in your head, the narrator, is you. The one that worries, plans, remembers, judges. But take a closer look. That voice talks to you. It debates itself, contradicts itself. If it truly were you, why would it argue both sides? That voice is just another pattern, just more content passing through. But behind that content is something that doesn't speak. It simply knows. Aware of the thoughts, aware of the emotions, aware even of the sensation of being me. Like the sky behind the weather, it doesn't change when thoughts shift or moods rise and fall. It just is. This is what spiritual traditions have called the witness, what some scientists refer to as the field of consciousness. It cannot be seen or described, only recognized because you are it. And the moment you stop identifying with the storm of thoughts and remember the stillness beneath, a shift begins. Not a mystical escape from life, but a return to it. Raw, direct, and without distortion. You don't need to chase awareness. You're not separate from it. You are the seeing itself. You've likely spent your life believing you're in control, making decisions, weighing options, steering the ship of your own existence. But what if that sense of control is just another illusion your mind quietly maintains? Try this. Lift your hand. Simple, right? You decide, and the action follows. But neuroscientists have found something unsettling. The brain begins preparing to move before you consciously decide. The readiness potential, that electrical flicker of intent, appears milliseconds before your mind catches up and says, "I chose to do that." Which means the thought "I decided" comes after the brain has already set things in motion. You aren't choosing in real time. You're narrating what already happened. It gets deeper. Try predicting your next thought. Try choosing what will appear in your mind 5 seconds from now. You can't. Thoughts arise uninvited. Emotions bloom from nowhere. Reactions surge before logic can even catch them. And yet, we carry on as if we're fully in charge. We like the story of the self as the captain, rational, decisive, deliberate. But in truth, most of what you do is automatic, conditioned, or inherited. Breathing, blinking, emotional responses, even your preferences, they weren't handcrafted by your conscious self. They emerged from biology, environment, and memory. Even your beliefs, often absorbed before you knew you were absorbing. So, who exactly is in control? This is where the illusion begins to crack. The you who thinks it's making all the decisions is often just a narrator, a storyteller explaining choices it never made, trying to keep the sense of self intact. And yet, none of this means you're powerless. Quite the opposite. Because when you see through the illusion of control, a new kind of clarity emerges. One rooted not in frantic steering, but in quiet awareness. Life is still happening beautifully, unpredictably, chaotically. But now, the pressure to own every moment begins to fade. You're not failing to control life. You're waking up to the truth that it never needed controlling in the first place. For most of your life, you've probably assumed there's a solid you at the center of it all, a fixed identity experiencing everything from one consistent point of view. But when you really look, that center starts to blur. Where exactly is this self? Is it in your thoughts? But your thoughts contradict each other. They change. They loop. They arise uninvited. If the self were your thoughts, then it would be chaos. Is it in your memories? But memories are reconstructed each time you access them, colored by emotion, filtered through belief, rewritten subtly with each retelling. So maybe it's in your body? But every cell in your body replaces itself over time. The you of 10 years ago shares almost no physical substance with the person you see in the mirror today. And yet, something still feels consistent, doesn't it? That consistency isn't a core, it's a narrative. A story your mind constructs to make sense of experience. A thread tying together your past, your preferences, your decisions, not because there's a permanent author, but because the story needs a protagonist. This is why ancient philosophers like David Hume describe the self not as a thing, but as a bundle, a collection of fleeting perceptions strung together like beads on a string. No fixed core, only a sequence. No center, only scenes. It's confronting to realize that the self isn't the source of your life, but a product of it, a voiceover added after the fact to explain the unfolding. But it's also freeing, because once you stop clinging to the story, you're no longer bound by its script. You don't have to be who you were. You don't have to carry the old plotline. You can just be. And in that space, something deeper than identity begins to stir. Close your eyes and imagine a red apple. You can see it clearly in your mind's eye. But here's the question. Who exactly is seeing it? You might assume it's you, the observer behind your eyes, the silent watcher inside your head. But when you try to locate that observer, it slips away. Like trying to catch light with your hands, the more closely you look, the more it vanishes. Neuroscientists have searched for a central self inside the brain, a pilot in the cockpit, a CEO of consciousness. But they've never found it. Only networks, activity, energy. No fixed seat of the I. Just processes, constantly shifting, and yet, somehow, something is still aware. This is where the illusion gets clever. The mind doesn't need a self to function. It just needs the appearance of one. Like a movie that makes you believe in characters that don't exist beyond the screen, your mind plays a convincing role, but it's not the actor, it's the projector. The ancient Zen masters called this illusion the mirror mind awareness, that reflects everything but holds on to nothing. They taught that when you search for the observer, you will never find it, because what's searching is what you're looking for. You are not watching awareness like an object. You are awareness, empty of shape, yet full of presence. And in that recognition, something profound happens. The need to define yourself softens. The effort to maintain an identity eases. You realize the observer never needed to exist as a thing. Its power was never in having form, but in being formless. Not the one who watches, but watching itself. Raise your hand. Simple, right? You feel like you chose to do it. That there was a decision, a moment of intention, and then the action followed. But neuroscience tells a stranger story. In countless lab experiments, researchers have measured brain activity milliseconds before a person becomes consciously aware of their decision. The body had already begun to move before the mind said, "I chose this." This is not a theory. It's a fact of observation. The conscious mind is always slightly behind. Like a narrator describing a scene that's already happened, claiming authorship after the fact. We don't initiate most actions, we notice them. Your heart beats, your lungs fill with air, your eyes scan the room, your posture shifts. Not because you sit at some internal control panel pushing buttons, but because life moves through you, on its own, effortlessly, unconsciously. And yet, the illusion remains that you are the one doing it all. That illusion gives comfort. It gives coherence to a world that otherwise feels chaotic. But if you look honestly, you'll see. The body knows what to do. It walks, eats, cries, heals, laughs, all without a commander. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, action without effort, movement without force. The state where life flows not because of you, but through you. When you stop claiming authorship over every breath, every motion, every outcome, a strange kind of peace emerges. You're no longer burdened with controlling the uncontrollable. You're no longer a manager of every twitch and heartbeat. You are simply here as the world unfolds. The body moves, not because someone moves it, but because movement is the nature of life. There's a voice narrating your entire life. It comments on your actions, replays past conversations, predicts future disasters, and judges everything, especially you. It's so constant, so familiar, that you've come to believe it's you. But here's the unsettling truth. It isn't. That voice doesn't speak, it chatters. One moment it lifts you up, the next it tears you down. It contradicts itself, argues both sides of a decision, and replays the same story until you mistake the loop for logic. If you were truly that voice, it wouldn't turn against you. It wouldn't make you anxious, doubtful, or ashamed. But it does. And that's because it isn't you. It's a script, a mental program built from memory, culture, trauma, and conditioning. It speaks with the tone of a parent, a teacher, an old fear, but rarely with the truth. So who is the one hearing that voice? Who notices it rising and falling like waves? That's where your real self lives, not in the noise, but in the noticing. The voice in your head may be loud, but it's not your identity. You don't have to argue with it, believe it, or silence it. Just watch it. Like clouds drifting across the sky, it passes. And what remains is a deeper stillness, the one that sees. You are not the noise. You are the awareness underneath it. Long before you had a name, before you learned to speak, before you were told who you were meant to be, something was already here. Watching. Noticing. Quietly aware. As a child, you stared at the world with wide, unfiltered eyes. You didn't label the sky as blue or call yourself a boy or girl. You just were. No story. No judgment. Just pure presence. That awareness, that silent witness, has never left. It was there when you scraped your knee and cried. It was there when you fell in love. It was there when you doubted yourself, succeeded, failed, and laughed until you couldn't breathe. The voice in your head has changed many times. Your body has aged, your personality has evolved. But this quiet witness? It's untouched, unaged, unshaken. And the strange part is we rarely notice it. We get so tangled in our thoughts, so pulled into the performance of identity, that we forget the stage itself, the space in which all of it appears. But when you pause, really pause, you might sense it. Not as a thing you can name, but as the one who has been here all along, watching every thought, every breath, every moment. You were never the actor. You were the space in which the acting happened. And once you see that, something in you begins to exhale, not in words, but in peace. Most of your life has been lived inside a story, a mental script about who you are, what you've done, and where you're going. It's full of memories, identities, opinions, fears, and roles you've collected along the way, but none of it is permanent. None of it is you. If you sit with it, you'll notice. This story constantly shifts. One day you're confident, the next you're unsure. One moment you're angry, then regretful. You rewrite history in your mind without even realizing it, adding meaning, cutting scenes, changing tone. And yet, because the story feels consistent, you believe it's true. But here's the unsettling truth. The self you've been defending, justifying, and improving is a narrative, not a fact. It's been constructed moment by moment, shaped by language, memory, and belief, not carved into the universe. What happens when you stop clinging to it? At first, it feels like disorientation. Who am I if I'm not this story? But beneath that fear lies a deep liberation. If you're not defined by the narrative, you're no longer confined by it either. You realize you're not the storyteller. You're the space in which the story unfolds, and in that realization, the need to perform, defend, or edit begins to dissolve. What's left is clarity, stillness, and a strange kind of freedom you forgot was possible. There's a moment, subtle, fleeting, when you catch yourself in self-reflection. You're thinking, and then you're watching yourself think. And perhaps, for just a second, you wonder, who's doing the watching? This is the paradox at the heart of consciousness. You are aware, but you are also aware of being aware. It's like a mirror reflecting itself, a loop with no beginning, no edge to hold on to. Every time you try to locate the true you, it slips through your fingers. You're not the thought, you can see it arise. You're not the emotion, you can watch it pass. You're not even the observer, because something sees even that role being played. So who's watching the watcher? That's where language fails and silence begins. It's not something to be grasped, only recognized. You realize that behind all the roles, behind even the witness, there's just this, a presence, awake and empty, yet full of experience. It can't be named, but it's closer than breath. Always here, always still. And in that moment, there's no more searching, no more need to define or contain. Just a soft understanding that the one who watches and the one who watches that are not two. There's only this awareness, unfolding through the lens of what you once called you. So much of life is spent searching for meaning, for peace, for a sense of who we truly are. We chase success, approval, experiences, hoping they'll reveal something solid, something real. But maybe what we're looking for can't be found out there because it's never left. The stillness you've been trying to reach is the one that's been watching all along. Not judging, not interfering. Just quietly present beneath every moment of noise, confusion, and striving. The mind will keep trying to label this, to box it up into concepts. But the truth isn't something you need to understand. It's something you remember, like a tune you knew long ago but had forgotten how to hum. It's the space behind the story, the calm beneath the chaos. And when you rest there, even for a moment, something inside begins to soften. The struggle to become dissolves into the simplicity of being. Not perfect, not finished, but awake. You were never broken, never behind. You were simply facing the wrong way, outward, toward illusion. Now, perhaps, you've begun the turn inward. Back to what has always been here. No need to fix or force. Just notice, just breathe. Let the story unfold. And every time you forget, come back, not to an idea, but to this presence. Because in the end, you don't need to find yourself. You just need to stop looking away.